What are the healthiest types of rice to have? It's an ongoing debate, but to fully understand it, we need to dive into the basics of rice. Rice has 4 parts, and 3 of them are edible. The outer inedible layer, called the husk or hull, is like a protective shell that gets removed when the rice is processed. Inside there is the bran layer, packed with nutrients like vitamins, antioxidants, and fiber. The germ, hanging out at the seed's base, is a nutrient powerhouse with healthy fats, vitamins, and minerals. Finally, the endosperm is the starchy core, making up most of the rice. While it may not have all the fiber and nutrients of the bran and germ, the endosperm is a solid source of carbohydrates and the main energy reserve for the rice. Now we've got the rice anatomy down, let's break it all down and figure out which types of rice are best for your diet. White rice goes through a process where its outer layers, the bran and germ, get removed through milling and polishing, leaving only the starchy endosperm. This gives white rice its distinctive white appearance. While this process extends its shelf life and gives it a smoother texture, it does strip away some of the nutrients like vitamins and minerals found in the bran and germ. From a nutritional standpoint, white rice is mostly a source of carbohydrates, giving you energy in the form of starch. It's low in fat and doesn't pack much fiber, protein, vitamins, or minerals due to the processing that removes these nutrient-rich layers. Now, all types of rice will affect your blood sugar levels because they're all rich in carbs. The speed at which this happens is measured by the glycemic index, and white rice tends to have the highest glycemic index among them. This quick spike in blood sugar can be a concern for those managing conditions like diabetes or metabolic disease. However, the glycemic index of white rice can be influenced by factors like cooking method and the specific type of white rice. Speaking of different types, when we say white rice, we're not talking about a single kind. Basmati and Jasmine are examples of white rice, each with their own characteristics we'll look into later. The term white rice is not really a specific type of rice. White rice actually covers a range of different types of rice which are all grouped together due to their processing method. Brown rice is a rice that undergoes minimal processing. It's considered a whole grain since the entire grain is retained. Essentially, only the outermost layer is removed, keeping the bran layer, germ, and endosperm intact. This makes brown rice a healthier choice compared to various white rice options. Retaining the bran and germ not only improves its nutritional value with more fiber, vitamins, and minerals, but also gives it a nutty flavor and a chewy texture. Nutrition-wise, brown rice is more of a complex carbohydrate compared to white rice. It contains more fiber and essential nutrients like manganese, magnesium, phosphorus, selenium, and various B vitamins. The higher fiber content in brown rice also contributes to a lower glycemic index compared to white rice. This means that it's a good pick for stabilizing blood sugar levels, making it especially beneficial for diabetics or anyone aiming to manage their blood sugar. Research indicates that opting for a diet higher in brown rice instead of white rice may lower the risk of diabetes. When it comes to weight loss, choosing brown rice over white rice seems to be a better option. However, simply swapping brown rice for white rice, though it may offer short-term benefits for blood sugar, doesn't show any long-term advantages for fat levels or blood sugar control. In fact, studies reveal that the simple act of replacing white rice with brown rice doesn't impact HbA1c, a key indicator of long-term blood sugar management. To achieve more comprehensive blood sugar control, it appears that eliminating rice from your diet, aligning with a low-carb dietary approach, is more effective. A reduction in overall carbohydrate intake is much more beneficial for blood sugar control and diabetes, compared to just switching from white to brown rice. The distinctive color of brown rice comes from its bran layer. Interestingly, different colors of bran can result in different colors of rice. Red or black rice, for instance, are also whole grain varieties, but their bran layers are red or black instead of brown. And just like with white rice, when we say brown rice, we're not talking about a single type. You've got options like brown basmati rice or brown jasmine rice, which are just different ways to process these types of rice. Red rice is another whole grain option that goes through minimal processing, keeping the bran layer, germ, and endosperm intact. The reddish-brown color comes from the anthocyanins in the bran layer, giving red rice higher antioxidant levels compared to standard brown rice. However, when it comes to minerals, vitamins, and the glycemic index, red rice is pretty similar to regular brown rice. And just a quick heads up, red rice is not the same as red yeast rice, which is a supplement made by fermenting yeast on rice. Black rice, also known as forbidden or purple rice, is another whole grain with a black colored bran layer. Like red rice, black rice boasts high levels of anthocyanins, possibly even more than red rice. When it comes to other nutrients, it's likely on par with red and brown rice, but there are other factors in play that really shape the nutritional value of whole grain rice, and I'll get into those details later in the video. Basmati rice is a type of white rice, but it's also considered a long grain rice. Now, what makes long grain rice, like Basmati, different from short grain rice, such as Arborio? Well, it all boils down to the starch content in rice, specifically the amounts of amylose and amylopectin. Rice has these two main types of starch, and their ratio influences how quickly your body digests and absorbs the rice, affecting its impact on blood sugar levels. Long grain rice varieties like Basmati typically have more amylose and less amylopectin. Amylose forms a resistant gel during cooking, slowing down the digestion and absorption of carbs. This results in a gradual release of glucose into the bloodstream, giving long grain rice a lower glycemic index. In contrast, short grain rice, often found in sushi and risotto, have more amylopectin. Amylopectin breaks down into glucose more quickly, causing a faster spike in blood sugar levels and a higher glycemic index. Nutritionally speaking, Basmati rice is pretty similar to white rice as it lacks the nutrients from the bran layer or germ. That is, unless you go specifically for brown Basmati rice, which do retain those nutrient-rich layers. Jasmine rice is another kind of white, long grain rice, much like Basmati rice. The key differences? Well, they come down to where they're grown and their taste when cooked. Jasmine rice is grown in Thailand and has a slightly sticky texture once cooked. On the other hand, Basmati rice, grown in the Himalayan region of India and Pakistan, stays separate and fluffy after cooking. Jasmine rice boasts a subtle floral aroma and a hint of sweetness, while Basmati rice brings in a distinctive nutty fragrance and flavor. However, when you look at them from a nutritional and glycemic index perspective, Jasmine and Basmati rice are pretty much the same. Arborio rice is a type of white, short grain rice that hails from Italy. Being short grain, Arborio rice is rich in amylopectin, which lends a creamy texture to your dishes when it's cooked. However, this means it also has a higher glycemic index compared to most other white rice varieties, even though its nutritional value is pretty similar. Glutinous rice is another type of white, short-grained rice that's primarily grown in Southeast and East Asia. Don't let the term glutinous fool you. This rice doesn't contain any gluten, making it safe for those with gluten-related issues. The glutinous label simply refers to its sticky texture after cooking. Like Arborio rice, glutinous rice has a high amylopectin content, resulting in a higher glycemic index compared to other white rice types. Parboiled rice is a rice that goes through a special steam pressure process before milling. This process, called parboiling, includes soaking the rice in water, steaming it, and then drying it before milling. The term parboiled is a mix of partial and boiled because the rice isn't fully cooked during this process, but it gets a partial boiling treatment. Similar to white rice, parboiled rice is more of a processing method than a specific type of rice. Parboiled rice is similar to white rice with just the starchy endosperm and the bran layer and germ removed. However, parboiling has its perks. It helps retain some of the nutrients from the rice bran, as steaming them helps to move them into the endosperm layer. This gives parboiled rice a subtle amber color and boosts its nutritional profile compared to regular white rice. So it keeps more vitamins and minerals, although it won't quite match the nutrient content of brown rice and still lacks the fiber found in brown rice. The parboiling process also changes the starch structure, making the rice digest more slowly. This leads to a lower glycemic index, which in some instances can be even lower than brown rice. But keep in mind that there's a lot of variation in this regard for parboiled rice, and it depends on exactly how it's been processed. Wild rice isn't exactly a true rice. It's actually the seed of aquatic grasses from the Zizania genus. To harvest wild rice, we collect the grains from the seed heads of these grasses. It stands out with its chewy texture, nutty flavor, and is labeled as a whole grain. Nutritionally, wild rice brings quite a lot to the table. It's a rich source of complex carbohydrates and dietary fiber, and packs significantly more protein than any rice. When compared to white rice, wild rice has significantly more vitamins and minerals. Plus, it scores lower on the glycemic index. However, pure wild rice tends to be much pricier per weight than regular rice. That's why companies often blend small amounts of wild rice into the mix to elevate the overall nutritional content of the final product. So which type of rice is best for diabetes and weight loss? For starters, any whole grain rice like brown, red, or black rice that keeps its germ and bran layer is a smarter choice than white rice. Opting for long grain rice over short grain rice is also a good move because of the lower glycemic index. While parboiled rice could be a contender, you have to be more cautious. The quality and processing vary, and some inexpensive brands of parboiled rice might not offer much more than white rice. When it comes to nutrition, whole grain rice is again the best. Whether it's brown, red, or black rice, these varieties generally boast the highest nutrient concentrations. However, it's essential to note that the region they're grown in and how they're processed likely play a bigger role in nutritional value than their color alone. China and India are the largest growers of rice, and as a result, many regions in these countries produce some of the highest quality rice in the world. Parboiled rice might also beat white rice in nutrition, but once again, the quality varies greatly, and finding a good brand is more important than just choosing any parboiled rice. Let's quickly address a rice-related weight loss claim that's making the rounds on TikTok. There's this idea suggesting rinsing rice and then drinking the rice water or eating the rice itself, I'm not sure, can magically aid weight loss. Yeah, that's completely fake. It's actually part of a marketing strategy for a sketchy supplement called Puraviv, which I've actually reviewed. It's a complete waste of money in case you're interested. When you rinse rice, especially white rice, the cloudy water you get is just starch. Essentially, you're drinking starchy water, similar to mixing a teaspoon of cornstarch into a cup of water. This won't help you lose weight. In fact, you might end up gaining weight drinking this nasty concoction. But moving on. Remember that rice, from any source, is still a significant source of carbohydrates. While certain varieties offer lower glycemic index, increased fiber, and better nutrition, you'll still need to portion out and control the amounts you eat depending on your diet. Check out Harvard's Healthy Eating Plate for a good ratio of carbs to have on a diet. So steer clear of rice hack gimmicks and focus on balanced eating instead. Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Young. What type or brand of rice do you have on your diet? Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date. And if you found it informative, please leave me a like and share this video with someone you know can use the info.